Somalia is in the grip of famine, and the UN estimates that at least 12.5 million people across the Horn of Africa require life-saving assistance. Some countries like the United States and Germany are being accused of double standards. A recent report says they may be seeking to give aid, but that they are the root cause of the famine because they control food prices. Food price increases of up to 250% have left nearly 4 million Somalis in crisis. Join us as Africa Today examines the root cause of the crisis, asking, are some of the hands offering food also the cause of the hunger? Plus an update on the situation in Libya.
In the wake of the severe famine in Somalia and other parts of Horn of Africa, many Western countries and aid agencies made promises to help those affected. Several weeks on, and many of the affected are still waiting for aid to arrive. The drought and famine which has hit Somalia the hardest is the worst in the region for 60 years. Western countries that have promised to help are being accused of hypocrisy after a report suggested they contributed to creating the famine in the Horn of Africa. World Bank expert and economist Wolfgang Fengland has described the crisis as man-made. He pointed out that a small number of farmers in countries like the United States and Germany are controlling the local market, which is keeping food prices artificially high. Moreover, he believes the famine is as a result of high prices for food rather than natural causes like droughts. Over 1 million people have now been affected by Western policy over food prices. Africa Today now looks at the real reason for sending aid to the famine-hit region and whether those promises have been honored.
Indeed, many countries have contributed to the aid effort, including Iran, which is planning to dispatch more batches of food supplies within the next month. Africans are also coordinating their efforts and discussing long-term solutions. In the meantime, the crisis rages on and solutions need to be implemented as quickly as possible. One of the heartening effects of the crisis is the number of coordinated efforts being made by a wide range of participants. These include the Humanitarian Forum in Nairobi and the monitoring group Africans Act for Africa. So, is it the case that this crisis is not so much a matter of drought per se, but rather the inflation of food prices, which hit millions of already impoverished Africans? Here with me to give us an update and to discuss the causes of this repeated cycle of famine are Abdullahi Osman, the Director of Access for Support and Development Center, and Mr. Farhan Ali Ahmed, the Secretary General of the Somali Concern Group. Our guests will also be giving us their thoughts on developments in Libya later on throughout the show. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. It's a depressing picture, isn't it, Farhan?
Yes.
Here we go again, the Horn of Africa, starving babies. What do you think are the reasons being given? Is there some veracity in the reasons being given for the delays in getting aid to those who need it most?
Actually, yes, there is actually, because so far there are little aid that has reached in Somalia, and it is a little. We cannot say. There hasn't been aid so far. There is a little, and the information we are getting from the ground are saying that less than 20% aid has been received from a variety of areas like the Islamic world and also some of the international aid agencies. Mm. But the pledge was high. The international community has pledged so much money and has been delivering Somalia so little. Mm-hmm. And I think the problem is because international community. This is not the first time that Somalia has had a famine. It was in the 1992 when the West, led by the United States, went in Somalia, militarily intervened, and also they saved so many millions of Somalis at that time, but they failed to create a Somali and a stable government at that time. So that's I think right. This time, yes. What is why they are reluctant is maybe they are afraid. There are Al-Shabaab who are extremist organization who are there, so they may feed Al-Shabaab instead of feeding the...
We're going to talk more about the impact of Al-Shabaab in this whole scenario. But if I could bring you in, Abdullahi, these delays seem, sort of unnecessary. because other countries, as Farhan has mentioned, like Iran, has managed to get aid through. The Turkish official was there. Other countries are managing to get aid into the country. So, I mean, why do you think the significant NGOs coming from the West are not getting the aid through?
Actually, that is true. The aid is not getting there. And as the United Nations has said in several times, over 10 million Somalis are at risk of dying because of hunger. Especially the children are dying by thousands on every single month. So, and children are dying because of malnutrition and lack of a proper treatment. And as everybody knows, there is no any sort of infrastructure at all in Somalia because of the civil war which was going on for the last 20 years.
Right. And so, could you explain to people who might not be aware, there's a transitional government, but it only controls a small proportion of the country.
The transitional government, which is in place at the moment, they have no any capacity at all whatsoever. Right. They cannot handle, they cannot even actually manage, because there is no any infrastructure at all in place. Right. And the transitional government exists because of the protection from the African peacekeeping missions in Somalia, especially in Mogadishu. So the main international NGOs, and especially the United Nations agencies, they are not operating effectively at the moment in Somalia, especially in southern regions of the country. So, the main reason they were saying was because of the security issue.
Of Al-Shabaab?
Of Al-Shabaab. But at the moment, what we do know is Al-Shabaab withdrawn from Mogadishu almost 3 weeks ago. The Turkish Red Crescent, now they are operating fully. Right. They have started operating fully in Mogadishu. Right. The Qatar charity, they have been delivering aid to Mogadishu almost for the last 5-6 weeks, and the Qatar charity was feeding the main refugee camp in Mogadishu. Also, the Iran, they have delivered aid, Kuwait, Emirates, and other countries as well. Yes. Also, the Africans now they were organizing themselves, and they are planning now to deliver aid to Somalia. But the question I've been asking myself was that, right, when the United Nations agency is saying that they cannot go into Mogadishu because of the security issue, and Turkish Prime Minister, Mr. Erdogan, with his main cabinet members and his families have landed in Mogadishu.
In safety.
In safety. So how could we then explain, how could we understand it then that the United Nations agencies, they cannot go there because of the security issue?
Well, actually, let's get a bit of a picture about Mogadishu, because you were recently there, Farhan. Yeah. I mean, what did you see? Did you feel safe?
Actually, Mogadishu at the moment is safe because there are almost 10,000 AMISOM African peacekeepers in Mogadishu right now who really doing a good job in Mogadishu at the moment.
Right.
And I believe at the moment 8 agencies can work in Mogadishu, and international communities can mobilize. I mean, their effort is to go to send all their organizations or their leaders to see the famine and feed those who are starving, hunger and disease. And actually, if when you are in Mogadishu, you will see that thousands of people are coming from the areas controlled by Al-Shabaab, which is not in Mogadishu at the moment. It is south and central.
Right.
And those who are able to reach Mogadishu will get help. But those who are locked inside that area that Al-Shabaab is controlled, it is really their life are at stake. And I'm really, really surprised why the international communities, the international community is saying that Al-Shabaab, although they refuse to allow 8 agencies to operate the areas they control, but I think they are, because there are thousands, more than 400,000 people are dying in areas controlled by Al-Shabaab. And I believe there is no justification whatsoever that international community says there's a security issue in that areas. I think there are many things that they can do. They can do airdropping food in that areas.
Right.
Also, they can use a local trusted aid organizations that maybe Al-Shabaab not refusing. If they refuse some of the international, especially Western aid agencies.
Yeah.
Also, they can use the Islamic organizations who already there, like the Turkeys or Iran or Kuwait or Qatar, those who already reached, like the Red Crescent. They can use those Islamic aid agencies to take the food to the areas that Al-Shabaab controls.
Exactly.
If that doesn't work, I believe there are AMISOM armies in Mogadishu, African armies in Mogadishu. They can redeploy it and use legitimate forces to take the food in order to save those who are dying, the areas that Al-Shabaab controls.
Okay, well, as we come to sort of ending the first part of the show before we go to our emails, do you think, and this is perhaps a bit of a contentious statement to make, that this dragging of feet with regard to aid is to do with really seeking to destabilize Al-Shabaab? This is from the Western point of view.
Actually, look, what we do know also is the UNICEF, which is United Nations agency, has been dropping reliefs in Baidoa and in Gedo region. Those two regions controlled by Al-Shabaab.
Right.
Right.
So the food is getting through.
Yeah. So some of it.
Yes.
So why the United Nations doesn't allow the United Nations agencies fully operate in those areas? Okay. And also what we do know is even those who have managed to reach the refugee camps in neighboring countries, they are not getting proper. They are not getting enough aid and enough support they needed. And even there is security issues. The women are complaining about rape.
Right.
Raping by gangs who are around the refugee camps.
Who are these gangs, allegedly?
Actually, nobody knows. But
Okay.
the United Nations themselves, they were alarming the scale of the rape against the Somali refugees women. Even I was reading a story. One of the cases happened in a refugee camp in the Ethiopian side. A 16 years old Somali girl was raped, just for example, a few steps away from her tent. So, and if so, the refugees also, even they're not feeling safe or they don't have a safe passage in the refugee camps in the neighboring countries.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Al-Shabaab actually, they are losing the control. And in my view, the Al-Shabaab, they will not exist any longer.
After this crisis, you think?
After this crisis, the people are fleeing from the area they control. They have no instinct over to the Somali people.
Well, okay, we're going to talk a little bit more about that as we come to look at the root causes of this crisis yet again in the Horn of Africa. But we're coming to what you think with regard to the topics we've been covering here on Africa Today. And the first comment is about the situation in Somalia, and it's on our Facebook fan page. It's from Ibrahim in Mogadishu. He says it's very shameful that millions are dying and yet the world is standing by and making all these empty promises that come to nothing. If they really care about the crisis, then they should do something practical about it. Moving on to our emails, which is discussing the topic we discussed last week on Nigeria and oil. Edmore in Nigeria says the Nigerian government should be accountable to the people and push the oil companies to perform their responsibilities within the law. The oil companies should also be nationalized. Moving on to texts, we have a text from Mustafa in Libya. The end is nigh for the tyrant Gaddafi. His family should be paraded before the nation and humiliated, just as he has done to many Libyans. Long live Libya. Do you agree with any of those points of view? We love hearing what you think. Continue to keep your thoughts flowing by emailing africa@presstv.co.uk, or if you prefer, you can text +44 78 0000 8086. And of course, our ever-growing Facebook fan page is at Africa Today, Press TV London. Indeed, it looks like Mustafa's wish concerning Libya might indeed